Oh, hey everyone, welcome to Studio Z. So I think I have an interesting video lined up for today. This is going to be a comparison video about details. And I'm going to be taking a 3D image and I'm going to carve it with three different bits. So I'm going to be using an 1/8 inch round end bit, a 1/16 round end bit, and a 1/32 round end bit. And I'm going to compare just how much difference in detail do we get from one bit to the other. And then I'm also going to look at how much longer does one bit take over the other, and use that information, for us that we can figure out if you have a certain project, if there's cost constraints or time constraints, and figure out what works best in what situation. So the piece that I'm going to be carving is going to be about 4 inches by 5 inches. I didn't go with something really small and I didn't go with something really big. I kind of went right in the middle. And this isn't going to be about the setup as far as designing the piece. It's really just going to be a comparison of an image and between the three different bits and how much difference there is between each one. And I'm looking forward to it. I have never used a 1/32 inch bit, so I'm kind of looking forward to see just how much detail we get out of that. So without further ado, let's take it over to the design and I will show you guys the tool paths so that we understand the parameters for this, and then we'll jump on the machine and start machining it. Okay everyone, so I'm here in Vectric and this is the image that I decided to use for this comparison video. It is an image that I picked up from Design and Make in Vectric, and I picked it exclusively because of the chain that goes around the dog's neck. It has areas that will be, let's say, challenging for the larger bit to try to get into these tight areas here, and also the creases in his face and the folds in his ear. That will, again, be a determining factor where the skinnier diameter bit will excel in carving these out, and the larger diameter bit will not be able to go as deep to reproduce the detail here. So that, and also these little dimples on his lips, that will be challenging as well. So overall, I think this is a great image to do the test on and compare the differences between the three bits. So with that, let me just go over quickly the job setup. My board is going to be a 4-inch wide by 5-inch high, and it'll be 3/4 of an inch thick. Again, all of the other settings are always the same. This isn't going to be a video about how to design it. I just want to go over the tool paths with you guys so that you can understand the feeds and speeds that we're going to be using for this comparison. Okay, so we've got the image, and now I'll go over the material setup with you. Again, the same thickness, 3/4 of an inch. My X and Y datum's always going to be the front left corner. Material surface is going to be Z0. Positioning the model within the board. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple setup. So, and again, for this, there'll be a 3D roughing toolpath, which will be the same for all three bits. And we're going to be using a 1/32 inch round end mill, a 1/16 round end mill, and a 1/8 round end mill. And they'll all have the same roughing toolpath. It'll just obviously be the finished toolpaths that'll be the same. So I will go over with you, I'll show you this is for the round end 1/8 inch end mill, and this one, they'll all be cut the same. They're going to be cut on a 40-degree roster angle. And I will then also show you here we go, the settings for the bit itself. So every bit will have a 10% step over, and I'm going to spin them at 19,000 RPM at 130 inches per minute at a 60 inch per minute plunge rate. So, and they're all 2 flute bits, so we'll keep everything the same. Okay, so then the next bit that we'll look at will be the 1/16th round nose end mill. Again, same settings, 40-degree roster angle. And let's look at the settings for the bit. And again, same thing, 10% step over, 19,000 RPM, 130 inches per minute, 60-inch plunge rate. Again, same 2 flute bit. So I'll just show you now the third one, which will be a 1/32nd round nose end mill. And again, same thing, 40-degree roster cut. And we'll just go into the settings on that. Same thing, 10%, 19,000 RPM, 130 inches per minute, feed rate, and 60 inch per minute plunge rate. Again, same 2 flute. All the bits are going to be from the same company, and I will show you that once we get over to the machine. So we have one roughing toolpath, the same for all 3, and then we're going to do 3 different finishing toolpaths on 3 different pieces of wood and compare the difference between the 3. I also will point out that each one also takes a lot more time to machine. The 1/8 inch, according to this, is going to take a little over 26 minutes to do the finishing toolpath for the 1/8 inch. And for the 1/16th, it is supposedly saying it's going to take about 53 minutes to do. And then for the 1/32nd, it's saying it's going to take an hour and 47 minutes, give or take. These are usually a little exaggerated. I found that they're generally a little quicker than that, but we'll see once we get on the machine. Okay, so we've seen the image. We've got all of the tool paths. Now let me take you over to the machine and I'll show you the setup so that we can get started on machining. Okay, so I'm back at the machine and I have my wood block set up. As you can see, it's 4 inches by 5 inches, and I'm using double stick mounting tape to mount it to this pre-finished piece of plywood, which is fastened to my hybrid table. And I want to go over with you now the bits that we'll be using for this comparison. And just to show you, so for the roughing pass, I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch 3 flute upcut end mill, and that will be for all of the rough cuts. Then for the finishing cuts, I have a 1/8 inch round end mill. So these are all 2 flute, by the way, on the finishing bits. In the middle here, I have a 1/16th round end mill, and then a 1/32nd round end mill. And again, they're all brand new bits. They're all the same company, so it should be a pretty even comparison as far as the bits are concerned. And I know a lot of you guys have asked me from the last videos how I find and locate X, Y, and Z. So I thought I'd go over it again. It might be a little redundant for you guys that are familiar with how I do it. So I use a touchpad, and I will now go ahead and just show you how the machine finds X, Y, and Z. Okay, so I have the block set up, and I am going to now show you, there were a few of you that had asked how I find X, Y, and Z, so I just figured I'd go over it again. I use a corner touchpad, and I'm all set to set 0. So I like to also hold it with my finger so it doesn't move. So then I just remove the magnetic clip, click OK, and it will now go back and register the height for Z. Okay, so now I'll insert the tool for the roughing path and we'll get started on roughing it. Okay guys, so here's how it looks after the roughing pass. You can tell that it's a dog, but long way to go. So stay tuned. Next up will be the 1/8 inch round end mill finishing pass. Okay, so this is the carving for the 1/8 inch round end mill right off the machine. I haven't touched it or done anything to it. And it looks pretty good. Try to get it for you for all angles. All right, so this is the basis. You know, this is probably going to have the least amount of detail in it, and it should only get better from here. All right, so next up will be the 1/16 round end mill. I'm not going to show you the roughing passes anymore. That's all the same, and I want to bore you. So we'll just show the finishing passes from here on out. Just so if you're wondering, so this finishing pass took just right around, give or take, 18 minutes to carve this finish pass. Okay everyone, so here is the 1/16 round end mill right off the machine. It just finished. So this is untouched. I haven't done anything to it. You can see There is a tremendous amount of detail that has already begun to come out. You can really see, or start to see, the creases in his face. The chain is really popped out. You can really see it. It's tremendous. So I can't wait to see what the 1/32 round end will do. All right, let's move on to that. Okay, and here is the last one, all finished right off the machine. Again, haven't touched it. This is the 1/32 round end mill. And again, considerably more detail, especially in the chain, the mouth, the eyes, and all of the creases. You can really see sharp lines in all of the edges, the ears. It's really, really cool how much detail comes out. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over each one with a nylon brush just to clean up the little fuzzies that it has on it. And then I will show you them side by side, bare wood, so just brushed off bare wood. And then I'll show you them again side by side with some mineral oil on them to bring out more of the detail. All right, so here they are, brushed off. I haven't put any finish on it, so it's still bare wood. And I just wanted to put it in a different light so you can really see the difference in it compared to each other too. You know, you can see that the 1/8 inch one, all of the features are rounded and kind of muted. You can barely see the dimples under his nose. The chain is very, again, muted and rounded. And none of the features are really deep. And then as you step up to the 1/16, you start to see more. The lines get deeper, the chain gets more detailed. You see the dimples in his under his nose. And again, as you get to the 1/32, then it really comes out. You can really see the dimples on his nose, the creases on his forehead. I mean, it really pops out. The chain, his coat, like you could see the fur in his coat. The detail is tremendous, how much it really pops out. Okay, so now I'm going to put a coat of mineral oil on it and just see how much more it brings it out. Okay, and here they are now with mineral oil applied to them. Again, you really start to see just how crisp the carving with the 1/32 round-ended bit really is compared to the 1/8. The 1/16 compared to the 1/32, there's, you know, they're pretty similar, but there are subtle differences when you do look at them up close, especially the chain and the little dimples under the nose. You really pick those up. The creases are much sharper. But and time-wise, so the 1/8 inch one for the, this is all for the finishing pass. The 1/8 took about 36 minutes. I'm sorry, 18 minutes. So it took 18 minutes to do the 1/8. It took 36 minutes to do the 1/16, and then it also took 72 minutes to do the 1/32. So, and you know, mind you, again, this is a 4-inch by 5-inch carving, so it's pretty, you know, it's pretty small. And the time is, you know, it's not huge, but when you get into a larger carving, that will really start to come into play. If something took, oh, I don't know, an hour to do in the 1/8, it will certainly take much longer to do in the 1/32. But for me, the payoff is all there. It's really detailed. I mean, that is pretty incredible how much detail is in that. Okay, so what's the takeaway from today's video? Well, two things. How much detail do you want, and how long are you willing to wait? That's basically the gist of this whole video today. So again, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I've never used a 1/32 inch bit, round-ended bit for carving 3D stuff. I just thought that it was, you know, really only for carving out an intricate coin or doing engraving, you know, something like that. And I don't do that kind of stuff. So for me, I thought, that's a bit that I'll never have to use, or might not ever use something like that. Well, let me tell you, it was an eye-opener to see just how much detail you're losing out on if you're not going to that level. And I say that kind of cautiously because on something of this size, it's pretty simple. You know, you can make that choice because you're not talking about a really long time to machine it. And it's not a factor on something of this size. But if you were carving something, I don't know, 12 inches by 20 inches, something like that, and it was really intricate, it's going to take a really long time with a 1/32 inch bit to carve that. I mean, you know, you're talking probably close to 20 hours, or you know, something like that. And that's a really long time. So you know, again, I don't know if you're doing it for something that you're making money on, you know, I don't know how the heck you would price that. That's pretty out there. So if it's just something for yourself, you know, that's not going to be a problem. You do, as you know, it's your own time, a labor of love, and you know, no problem. But for something that you're trying to get paid on, that could be an issue if someone's not willing to pay for all that. But the definite difference is clear. There's no doubt about it. You know, the 1/8 inch bit can't get into tight curves. It just doesn't have the diameter, the radius on the tip. So all of the features are rounded and kind of blunt. They're dull, let's call it, right? And as you get into the finer, smaller diameter bit, the bit can go deeper and that radius is tighter, so therefore all of your lines and your features are going to be much more crisp and much clearer. And it's dramatic. I mean, it's really a big difference. Like the images here, they look totally different from one to the other. And I hope that came through on the camera. I tried to get, you know, as up close as I could to show the detail. The lighting is also important. The way that it gets shadowed and things like that really bring out the features and what you're carving. So yeah, that's what I would definitely take away from this, is knowing when and where to use it because of how long it could take. I mean, if it was, you know, time wasn't a factor, I think in any kind of carving, everybody would pretty much go with the 1/32 inch bit because the results are phenomenal. But how long can you wait? That's the real question.
Another thing to consider is compromise. So if you do have a project that's really large and you can't wait however long it would be to do it with a 1/32 inch bit, you can compromise and go with a 1/16 inch bit, which will give you 50% less detail approximately, and it'll be that much quicker. So you can compromise a little bit on the detail and save on time, and you can, therefore get it done without having to wait possibly 20 hours for something to carve. So that is also a benefit. Seeing here the differences between the 3 bits, you can kind of play around and say, hey, this project, maybe I'll use the 1/16 because it's really this big, or this one is really large, but the details in it are very subtle. It doesn't have very deep, let's say, cuts or things like that. They're kind of rounded, so I can use the 1/8 for that one. It won't be a problem. It won't change the look of it. Or if you have something smaller, and then you can say, hey, now I can go for it. I can use the 1/32 and really get some crisp details. So I think that is what we get from today's comparison, is just knowing, like I said, when to use what bit under what circumstance. So with that, that's going to wrap it up for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. And if you did, please be sure to hit the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, please be sure to leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. And with that, I will see you guys on the next one.